Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Bayless, and I'm the Civic and Social Information Services Lead with Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. I've been with my organization nearly a decade, and in January of 2020, I was hired to lead a grant with the goal of providing the community with a greater understanding of the First Amendment in civic life through enhanced library programs, services, and resources. But then the pandemic hit, and we were still in the midst of the 2020 census and the presidential election. Misinformation was everywhere. Polarization was becoming the new normal, and it seemed like there was no way to dig out of this hole to speak with people whom we disagreed with, let alone have productive and meaningful dialogue. And something that kept running through my mind was, I wish I knew how to lead challenging conversations with my community, with my colleagues, with my family, and I just feel stuck. And that is when I met John.
Hi, my name is John Sarrouf, and I'm the co-executive director of Essential Partners. Essential Partners is a nonprofit in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but we work all over the country, all over the world, to equip people to live and work better together in community by building trust and understanding across differences. In 2019, I got an email from a audience engagement professional at the Quantum Theater in Pittsburgh, reached out because their artistic director had said, we're doing this play about firearms, and we would love to have a dialogue. It's up to you to organize it. And this poor fellow had no idea how to do that. So he went looking to find somebody who did, and found Essential Partners. And I talked to him about that and helped him through the process. In the meantime, I found out that this was being held at the Carnegie Library. And I thought, that's amazing that a library is making space for a theater to come in and do a dialogue like this.
Hi, I'm Bob Staines, and I'm a senior associate at Essential Partners. And I was lucky enough to work with Jess and her team to create a training for her staff and also for people in other libraries and some community leaders on how to use reflective structured dialogue in their work. And one of the problems that comes up a lot in public organizations where people are coming in from the public and other organizations as well is when people have very strong emotion and folks on the ground have a hard time engaging that. And done some work with the Museum of Science in Boston about a Dead Sea Scrolls exhibit where people were coming with strong emotion, training the staff how to engage that. And we use a lot of the insights from those experiences to help folks at Carnegie.
The Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh is made up of 19 branches. It's located in a large urban setting separated by, hills, mountains, rivers, tunnels, bridges, all these things that make for a very diverse geography and a very diverse communities. And so we as library professionals face many challenges, as you all know. Communication between frontline staff and leadership. So really, how in this large organization of hundreds of people can we feel like we're able to talk to one another in a way that is heard and received and understood, and better yet, utilized for the benefit of our community. There's what we know the community needs versus what library staff can realistically provide. So, I think a lot of us maybe entered library school or our first library job with these beautiful dreams that we would shelve books all day and read and talk about books, and it would be lovely. And it's 2021, and I think a lot of people want to know, how can they get rent rebates to not get evicted? They want to know, how can I get a job because I'm unemployed, I lost my job, I'm fearful to go back to my job. We are really transcending beyond this like brick and mortar place of books. We are still a place of information, and we always will be, but as we had to shift during the internet boom and go digital, we're once again shifting in the services that we provide, but also the way that we interact with people and the way that we model that good behavior. I think it's really scary for library staff and or libraries to take that leap or that risk of facilitating challenging conversations. But really, in the way that we are, these safe spaces and community hubs, we want to acknowledge that there are challenging and tricky and scary things happening. And we want to be proactive about that work instead of reactive. If it's possible to get in front of something before it becomes a full-fledged crisis in our community, in our country, in the world, all the better. But even if we can't do so and we have to be reactive, we can at least equip ourselves with the tools and the knowledge to feel confident as library professionals to both lead those types of conversations as well as train others to be able to do so.
Think with me for a minute about questions, because questions are really at the core, one of the things that are at the core of our work. Parker Palmer once said, when the going gets rough, turn to wonder. Not the sense of wonder, but I wonder what's happening with that person. And the power that questions have to either broker connection with somebody or put a barrier between people. And a lot of times when we're uncertain of what to do or we're feeling afraid in a situation, we ask a question that shuts things down. But with reflective structured dialogue, we want to teach people to use questions that open doors to connection to the people that they're engaging. And once that happens, when people feel connected to, when they feel that you're curious about them, it starts to change the way they relate to you. So that's the first step in engaging in a difficult conversation, is to use questions in a way that open doors and broker connection. And John, you could say a little bit more about making space for that connection.
Yeah, I think one of the important things about a library is that libraries in general is that they have space. They invite people in. They're one of the places, I think, in our country that still has a lot of trust of a lot of different kinds of people. And so one of the things you want to make sure that you do when you invite people into your space is to make opportunities for the people to connect on a real human level. That might include food and coffee. It might just be one moment where people turn to each other and share a beautiful thing about their day that they've experienced. Some way for people, when they're coming into your space for a conversation, a community conversation, for people to feel connected to each other. Another thing that we talk about in our work that's really important and important for you all to think about is inviting the people who are going to be part of the dialogue into the process of making the dialogue. So if this is about a particular topic in your community, make sure you've gone into the community and asked people who the dialogue is about, what's most important to them, and invite them to be part of the creation of it, so that all voices aren't included at the end of the process, but actually at the beginning of the process. It makes your job a lot easier because you know, A, that people are going to come because they've been invited early on. But two, you know that you're creating something that's really meeting people where they are. It's actually including them along the way so that when they come, they feel like they really belong there in a different way because they were part of creating it. And the last thing that I want to say about the opportunity of dialogue in a large community conversation is that dialogue invites us to ask a bigger, perhaps more important question than sometimes we're stuck in with the either or question. Should we build a school here or there? Should we have a particular piece of art in our community here or there? Should we allow certain activities to go on or not? That either or gets us stuck in an oppositional kind of conversation. Dialogue invites us to ask a bigger question. What do we care about in our community? What might we envision together about what's possible? So it allows us to ask the bigger, more important, more and actually deeper question about our values and our visions and our hopes together.
It really strikes me that what you just said about what we really care about, that approach also translates to taking reflective structured dialogue back into our organizations. So it's the work that we want to do in the community. It's the work that a library wants to do in the community with the community. But one of the most exciting things that I've experienced in my career doing this work is to see how people take this and bring it back to their organizations. Our colleague Dave Joseph often says, this is not just a thing that you do. It's a way of being. It's a way of thinking. It's a mindset. It's a heart set. And when you bring that back into your organization, you start to change things like starting a meeting with a connection before you get into the content so that people show up personally. Or you start to shift things around so you're doing a lot of advanced work. Doing that kind of inquiry within your organization that John just mentioned before people come together, it's transformative. I was talking with a clergy person the other day that started doing this work in his church 14 years ago. And in his farewell sermon, he talked about the way that the congregation was transformed slowly by integrating this thinking throughout. so that it became a dialogic community. So if you can't do dialogue out in the community, if it's going to take a while to do that, you can still use this stuff to change the ways you engage internally.
So just a little bit more about this collaboration that we did with Essential Partners. So as I mentioned, the pandemic definitely changed up how we wanted to do this. We were hoping this could be in person, and we had to pivot to virtual on Zoom. But we were able to do both a shortened training with library staff, specifically supervisors, managers, coordinators, who could then use what they learned in a way that could also empower their staff that they supervise. But then Bob and I were able to do a training with community members, library staff, librarians, and managers from both our Carnegie Library system as well as our Allegheny County Library. And we had about 18 people join us for that, for the 2 days, full days on Zoom. And it was just an incredibly amazing experience for so many reasons. One of them being that trainings with library staff in the community don't really happen. I don't know if any of you watching this have ever been able to do something like that, where you are focusing on a topic or a subject that has such relevance to your professional institution, but also benefiting the community. And I think that dialogue is one of those things that really kind of transcends beyond libraries and what library staff should be focusing on versus what we provide to the community. We have been able to implement the skills of RSD in small ways from how we run and structure some of our staff meetings, utilizing some of those tools and just questions, as Bob was talking about, to really get past some of those stuck moments that John had referred to. We're also looking at ways that we can, in the coming year, actually do a series of in-person dialogues with our community members. But so much of this work happens at the beginning before the group ever comes together. So we really want to be mindful of that. And make sure that we are including all the voices that we really want represented and are focusing on something that will be meaningful to the community with those challenges in mind that I mentioned earlier, geography and location, and how we internally talk to one another. So really focusing on how can we emulate these skills within our own organization, and then we can model that to the community when we're at that point. But our survey feedback from the 2-day training, it was so uplifting and powerful and impactful. The 2 days together, even though it was Zoom and everyone has screen fatigue, it really made a difference to participants. It was so energizing. And we experienced, engagement and understanding despite our differences, even though I think we all had a lot of commonalities going into the training. It was still just very motivating because we all are working toward this shared common goal of being able to have these resilient conversations.
One of the exciting things that's about this process that's possible is when libraries partner with other organizations to create public spaces for challenging conversations about issues that affect everybody in a community. And John has done some work that's a terrific example of partnering with a library to make that happen. John, will you tell us about that?
Sure, Bob. We had a dispute in our own hometown, which is a beautiful coastal city north of Boston. And somebody had donated a piece of art, a big statue that some people wanted to put in a park on the waterfront. And it became quite a controversy because some people liked the art, loved it. Some people didn't as much. Some people thought it was a great place. Some people didn't. And so the community began to get into a conversation about that particular piece of art and about that particular park. And Facebook blew up and city councilors were involved. And luckily, the library reached out and said that we could have a conversation at the library about what we talked about, which is a bigger question, which is, what do we care about in terms of public art in our community, and where do we want it? And we invited people in from all parts of our community. We put up a big map on the wall and put up stickies about all the public art that we really love, all the places we wish we had more public art, the kind of public art that we wish Gloucester would invest more in. And the library became a place where people could imagine what's next. And so that's the possibility of the transformative power of dialogue in a space like libraries to change what's possible in a conversation. As Bob said, Essential Partners wants to be a partner with libraries. If you have need of a conversation or a consultation, please feel free to reach out to us at whatisessential.org, and you can sign up for a free half-hour consultation. We'd be happy to talk you through whatever challenges you have facing you.
We really hope that this was informative and gives you some ideas or some questions of your own to ask, and welcome any questions that you have. Please, keep researching, keep learning, and, take the risks of having something like reflective structured dialogue be part of your library, because it really can make such a difference in getting to the heart of conflict or those challenging conversations. Thank you.